Hi, everyone. Welcome to this extra learning training module related to the Leader's Guide Frontline Wellness Conversation Kit. This is in addition to other supports and services that your partnership integration team member is offering in terms of communication and support to really start to have these conversations and continue the movement towards adopting the step care model approach in our integrated organizational health and well-being strategy. So for the sake of this recording, I am going to go through the conversation kit, the resource guide. You will be able to print this off, or you can absolutely use this in its digital format. But the hopes of this recording is really to give you a gentle introduction about what the conversation kit is and how it can help support you in sharing with your staff or help you and your team reach that more desired state and emotionally well culture at work. So I'm just going to go through what the kit looks like and explain along the way. So the first page, when you flip open, you're going to see the table of contents, and there are 7 specific areas that we have focused in on today. The first one is an introduction. It's again going to give you that background information on the purpose and impact, one of the step care model in and of itself, but primarily the purpose and impact of having these conversations that welcome and support conversations around emotional intelligence, around work-life balance, around that whole element of self-awareness and supports and what's available within the workplace. It's also going to highlight the impact of, from a leadership lens, that our employees, it's very important to them that they see their leaders walking the walk or sponsoring and supporting this sort of initiative as well as their well-being. The second part is going to get into kit instructions. We've tried to structure this in a way that you really can just print the resource and you'll have everything readily available in terms of narratives, direction. We just want it to make it as streamlined as possible on how to implement these. When you get to the question pieces, I don't want you to feel that you have to have all 3 questions in one conversation. These absolutely can be used as a tiered approach, whether you're using them in huddles or team meetings, or just as even a general guide in one-to-one or leader rounding opportunities. Step 3 in the table of contents, you're going to see a warm-up activity. We find that it's really important to kind of set the stage and create this comfortable environment so that your staff are going to feel more open in having these conversations, but in a fun way that is already guiding them into the focus on the discussion questions. So these are really learning activities to kind of gauge and see where your team is at first, before then you can naturally guide yourself into these discussion questions. Again, I kind of already went over the discussion questions, but they're primarily based around self-awareness and regulation. We've been very specific to focus in on some of the key pillars of emotional intelligence because that is what's going to help naturally drive these conversations and have people be more open to share their experience, or also have that greater sense of awareness of understanding how emotions really drive behavior and how they have an impact both on our own individual reactions, but then also the impact it plays at a team dynamic and a team culture perspective. This is really important. And again, do not feel that you have to ask all the questions in one sitting. You can absolutely use this as a tiered approach. But we're really trying to hone in on dismissing that traditional aspect of where we maybe have told our employees historically to sort of leave your emotions at the door. You're at work, put on a smile, and just kind of get through your work hours. This is really adopting more of a mental health lens, whether it's in our conversations, embedding it in our supports, but also in our decision-making strategies. So these discussion questions, I hope you find really helpful in generating really open conversations with your teams or individuals. Number 5 gets into resources. Again, the first part of the step care model work has been primarily focused around step 6, frontline wellness. We are looking for that quick win. Our healthcare workers really need these supports and strategies and tools. So to be able to naturally guide them in a direction of a program that is already in place and really focused on helping them build or increase their coping skills or adding another tool into their toolbox will be really helpful. Also, from the discussion questions, if you're finding that it is an overall team or culture dynamic, this resource of Frontline Wellness can absolutely be used from a leader perspective and maybe guiding you to fill out that referral form and have that conversation, that intake conversation with the clinician for a system navigation on how you can best support your team. So it is there not only at the individual employee level or leadership level, but then also for you to utilize from a team or culture perspective. Next, you're getting it into step 6, that opportunity for increasing awareness. We wanted to go beyond these supports or training tools and modules and really become a culture perspective. We're hoping that a lot of these support systems and promotional materials, you'll find a common area in your workspace or just a common, whether you have a whiteboard and it's a question a week that your staff can share, or however you want this to be embedded into your workspace. We absolutely understand that a lot of this stuff can be like a square peg, round hole mindset, where the information and the supports are absolutely needed, but maybe program areas have very unique or specific needs. So this increasing awareness is going to highlight the opportunity from a leadership perspective to keep the conversation going, to keep that culture or that open space for your teams, to understand that not only does their organization and their leader walk the walk and sponsor these initiatives and sponsor the support of their well-being, but also that we're at work for the majority of our time with our colleagues, and we want to know that our colleagues have our backs, or that we have that self-awareness skill that if our colleague is in need, we also have and feel more confident and comfortable in referring these support systems and strategies. The last stage in step 7, the Connect for Support, Sabrina and I have left our contact information because this can also be something that we have scheduled in drop-in sessions. If you want to book your teams into those drop-in sessions or your own time, we can, if we have the capacity to do so, absolutely meet with your team virtually and start these conversations so that you can also participate in them. So just we're trying to be mindful to offer as many different support strategies as possible for these initiatives. So again, the introduction, this is just a narrative that you can use when it talks about emotional intelligence from a workplace perspective, and that how this is the whole purpose of these conversation kits is to really come together in a safe space and have these opportunities to share experience or opportunities to share and have a greater understanding of how emotions and how we are feeling really impacts us at an individual level, but then also a team dynamic and team culture perspective. Again, kit instructions, we wanted to streamline this as much as possible so that you can literally print these kits and go. So this is just another general intro into how this kit is going to support leaders in this awareness of conversations and the Frontline Wellness program. And again, it highlights that the topics that you are discussing align with the integrated organization health and well-being strategies specific to the step care model. Trainings and that will be coming down the line. So this again is really focusing in on that level 6 resource of Frontline Wellness. Also, the discussion points from this kit, they can use to align with program level supports that you already have in place or your organization already has in place. So just having these conversations can help you continually direct your employees back to systems and structures that are already in place, but maybe now enhanced based on whatever their level of need is. And again, the last bullet, when it talks about how conversation trends and feedback, we encourage you to have these on your agenda at leadership level meetings, because what this is going to do is increase an awareness of ongoing trends, how probably at every level of employment, a lot of the responses will probably be similar or a common experience, which is really important to highlight. But then again, also just further embedding opportunities and quick wins to be able to align it with the frontline wellness as a common support strategy that you use as leaders. So the warm-up activity, again, you can either print this and share the pictures or have it up digitally. And what you're going to do is in your space, have the pictures up and just ask your team one by one to identify what emotion best describes what they feel that person in that numbered column is experiencing or depicting. The value in this is really being able to hone in on our visual observation and awareness skill. I know that often you're taking into account physical cues that would lead you to assume how an individual is feeling. So this is just very good and a quick guide and getting your team to interact in just a warm-up activity. The responses are, the answer key is along the bottom, but then it also cues them to take it one step further, and you'll see the bubble at the bottom of the page that if you observed a colleague struggling, how would you support or approach them? Oftentimes people want to hide how they're feeling at work because they don't want it to disrupt or to affect a colleague's workday. So this is just really important, that it is good to be mindful that everybody is going to react or carry their emotions in a different way, and have that conversation about how you can identify in your workspace maybe a specific area where you can start to have like a well-being focus and offer, so that they can naturally or easily guide their colleagues to those areas. The discussion questions. So again, I'd mentioned in the introduction that you don't have to do all three in one sitting. Often it's kind of nice to tier them. But then if you do stack them in different meetings or different huddles, be mindful to kind of bring the conversation back. Like when we first met last week, we talked about self-awareness and asked you to identify these emotions. This is what the group was saying. So we're going to take it one step further. So the more you kind of embed it back and have that stacking effect, the more it's just going to naturally, they're going to understand it. They're going to have greater confidence over it. So the discussion questions on this page are really meant to encourage you and your teams to share openly. It's going to give you a perspective of current state of what their common experience is. It's also going to give you an ability to highlight what their needs and goals for well-being in the workplace are. The end game is to have a culture of well-being, a healthy workplace, healthy employees, and frontline care workers. So the responses from these questions are going to guide you in your referral process of what supports and systems are already in place. You're going to see those in the step care model that's coming out. So I really encourage you to use these conversations and start to make it a common practice, perhaps putting it on the agenda moving forward, just creating some space for people to share and come together. So the first question is related to the emotional intelligence pillar of self-awareness. This is really important because one, it's encouraging your team to come up with that emotional vocabulary. So in that warm-up activity, you were asked to depict what they felt that individual was experiencing or how they were feeling. And you probably got a variety of different answers, but along the same emotion spectrum. So this is the self-awareness question, is really prompting them again to expand their emotional vocabulary, but also have that safe space to identify, hey, this is what I'm experiencing at work. And the more their colleagues are sharing as well, they'll see it's probably often, again, that common experience. We think the question when it comes to identifying 2 emotions that you would like to feel at work over the next week is really important, because sometimes when you set that intention, you can come together and have that opportunity to really identify how you want to feel at work and have that emotion set in your head or somewhere as a visual and understand how you can bring that energy into your workspace or into a project or a task that you're doing. And again, the last question related to self-awareness, when it talks about what strategies can you use to support feeling your best at work, this is really important because perhaps your employees have some suggestions about what they would need readily available, or just that understanding of when something like this happens, I just need 5 minutes to step away and then I'll come back. So this is just helping you come up from like a program level perspective, things or opportunities that maybe aren't already in place, or maybe they've identified different ways and you can build them in to the daily structure. So self-awareness, I think, is really important. It's also really good to note that sometimes when you're asking them to identify two emotions, we're naturally hardwired to gear more towards the less desirable emotions, listing them first. It's like that first thought, second thought, but then often people will try and follow it up with a positive one. So you're going to have experiences or different responses, I'm sure, across the board, but this is just a really nice one to generate. This is probably like common practice. You see as a team dynamic that it's a common experience. What's already in place? What are your suggestions? And from a leader perspective, how can I support you in feeling your best at work? What can we put in place that will work for you? The second question related to self-regulation. This is really important because this is helping them gain that better understanding of, one, how emotions drive our behaviors, but two, how those reactions or those behaviors that they're encouraging, how they affect us at an individual level, but then also from a team perspective. So you're just asking them to think of a situation at work that was difficult in the last week or two. It's nice to pick like a very recent experience. And this is something that you're asking them because when you ask them to focus in on ones that may have caused emotions of stress or anger or fear, that kind of level, it's because it's encouraging them then to take it one step further to consider what their response was. And in the moment, was their response one that influenced themselves or others around them in a negative or positive way? And again, digging a little bit deeper, is there anything that they would have done differently? So if their response was to check out, that might not have been a positive response. It's probably more passive because you're dismissing it. You're not closing that stress cycle and moving on from it. Or maybe they had a very reactive approach. And now that they've had a chance to sit down in a safe space and kind of reflect on it, they would have chosen, I probably should have taken a few moments to think about the situation or breathe and react differently. So it's really nice to open up the conversation about, one, on regulation styles. Can they identify when they're feeling a certain way? What physical responses are helping them hone in on that emotion or how they're feeling? And then again, how their responses from those emotions are affecting themselves and those around them. The social awareness pillar for the last question is really good because, again, I mentioned traditionally we had asked our staff, check how you're feeling at the door, put on a smile, you're at work. And often it's a common experience that many people tend to hide their unhappy or unpleasant emotions at work. They try to pretend that they're happy when they're not, or they just don't like that feeling of vulnerability. They don't want to share with others or have it affect that team culture. So this is a really good conversation to get into about what emotions are you most comfortable with expressing at work and having a conversation about that and why. You're getting to learn a little bit more about your colleagues in terms of what they're most comfortable with and why that is. But then again, it's extending it, like what are you least comfortable with expressing and why? And it's having those conversations because then hopefully openly your team will want them or encourage them to be more open or lean in when they need to because they're there to support, or they would like to feel the support of their colleagues if they themselves are having a bad day. So the social awareness aspect is really going to help you have a more specific understanding of what the desired culture is from that. And we added in a quote at the bottom from LifeWorks. We thought that was really important because it's also increasing that opportunity and awareness for the benefits of being able to access a resource or a support system. So 3 in 5 individuals indicate that they would reach out for help if they were struggling with stress or mental health challenges. They no longer have to go at it on their own and not feel like they're supported by others. So we just wanted to be able to add that in, because you might find from people accessing frontline wellness supports or actively utilizing those supports and strategies at your program level, they might identify to be the high performers. Maybe they're your wellness champions, and you can really start to lean into them from a leadership perspective in terms of helping drive that more desired culture or encouraging and influencing their colleagues during the day. So this gets into the resource specific to frontline wellness. Again, I had mentioned many times, whether in this recording or the leader's guide, just we're looking for that quick win to support our staff. Because if in that first self-awareness question, your staff are identifying anger or stress or overwhelm or frustration, if that is the predominant emotion that they are coming to understand or reflect on, that's how they're experiencing at work, it's going to guide you to this level in the step care model of that elevated stress. I am struggling. So it's going to guide you into being able to have, again, those conversations of this support system or opportunity program is available. Let's chat a little bit more about frontline wellness and what it is. You do have access to resources and promotional materials that are really important, again, that you could hopefully put up in a designated space on your program area, letting them know how to access, how to refer, why they would choose frontline wellness, how that will help them. So this is just a narrative that you can use within these conversations, that if they are identifying in that self-awareness question or even the self-regulation question, it's just a natural pathway to being able to support your staff in referring and seeking out resources from frontline wellness. The last one, again, the why this program, it continues on with the conversation, giving you the narrative, the quick, easy wins or reasons why to access the frontline wellness program. So just some narratives that you can share, just so they have a greater understanding of what the program is and why they should want to do that. And then this next steps is, again, for support, awareness, community, and belonging. That is the end game. That is what is going to help support your supervisor citizenship skill in terms of leader rounding. So we've just given other areas and elements that you can continue to have these mental health lens focused conversations with your employees, and where and why. So the hospital communications and social media, and again, number 3, the posters and postcards, that will be not only at the program level, but probably at an organization or communications department level, but just so that it is commonly shared across the board. It is this continual visual. It is that ongoing confidence and understanding that the organization is really adopting this step care model, this approach. They're encouraging access to these resources because they want their frontline workers and employees at all levels to feel well and safe at work. Last page has to do with our contact information. So you'll see the email and phone numbers, both for Sabrina and myself, but then also a quick acknowledgement and shout out to Ontario Health, because our government has truly really understands and strive to ensure that healthcare workers do have access to supports when they need it, especially when it's related to their mental health and addressing their well-being. So just acknowledging Ontario Health for supporting this project and this program specifically, but also, again, it's not lost on us. To make this program successful, to really help your staff, leaders, we thank you. Your continued support in this project and the step care model approach is going to be instrumental in being able to embed it in the systems and structures from an organizational level, but also from your employees feeling cared for, listened to, heard, having this resource to know that they can approach you, especially when you're having these conversations and discussions openly. They know that they can lean in when they need it, or they know that their team and their leader has done the work, that they're understanding more opportunities to gain a greater sense of awareness when someone is experiencing something and how they can help. So just another acknowledgement to you as leaders. We thank you very, very much for your ongoing support and training in all of these projects. If there is any questions, suggestions, feedback, please use those contact information, reach out to us. Again, if we can help you in any capacity, bring this to your teams at a program level, book some time with us or utilize those drop-in sessions. We can specifically streamline to these conversations or to having another opportunity to increase awareness for leadership teams and employees about the step care model and the Frontline Wellness Program. So thank you for joining me. Hope you have a great day, and we will meet again in another training resource opportunity.